myself. And I built the perfect product for myself. And I always had supreme confidence that it would catch on amongst others.
Hey guys, welcome to the Up Next podcast, where we are interviewing teen entrepreneurs that are making it big time in the startup world. We are asking the questions we know you want to hear. Up Next is an app made for teens where anyone can join or build a real life startup. Okay, our guest is Michael Sikind, age 21, from San Francisco, currently in Michigan. He is the founder of Our Future, which is the go-to business podcast and media brand for Gen Z. You can see his podcast 3 times a week, getting exclusive insights and career advice from business legends, student founders, pretty much all of the coolest people, young and ready to tell you what they've been working on. He founded this platform at age 20. And Michael, I'm really happy to have you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
It's a pleasure to have you. I think you did a pretty good job introducing it, and I'm excited to answer some questions.
Well, if you said I did a good job, then I take your word for it. So how did you know your idea would work? How did you get to doing this?
I just knew it would work. I just knew that there wasn't a voice for this kind of content in the world. I was always obsessed with business podcasts, but I didn't understand why they were all hosted by people who were kind of older. I didn't understand why they were so long, and I didn't understand why they weren't marketed on platforms where young people lived and existed on. So I took those 3 things and I said, well, I'll be the voice of my generation in business. I'll build the best business podcast in the world for me. I knew that I wanted to build a product for myself, and I built the perfect product for myself. And I always had supreme confidence that it would catch on amongst others. And it's been the ride of a lifetime. I think I saw an opportunity to disrupt a content space. And a lot of people are like, oh, you think of disruption in healthcare, you think of disruption in SaaS, you think of disruption in, patents and whatnot and tech, but there are opportunities to innovate in content and to disrupt categories of content. And I really wanted to create a business podcast that was designed for Gen Z.
Well, that is exactly what you're doing, and it seems like it is in the right direction. We at Up Next are obviously totally pro Gen Z, and anything that we can do to help share things that this generation is doing, because they really have a different look on things, which is something that we should all, have a second thought about. So going throughout this, it's been almost a year exactly. Who would you consider your first mentor, if anyone, and what did they help you go through?
My first mentor in this process. I think a lot of my quote unquote mentors have been peers who are doing something similar. But I would say my first mentor was my friend's dad, who advised me on my microphone setup and my hosting platform, and he just provided me that information I needed to get started. So I would probably attribute the mentor tag to him. But yeah, I would say my friend's dad was pretty instrumental in helping me understand like what it took to actually do a podcast, because from when I got the idea, I think it had it up and running, 5-6 days later.
Mm-hmm.
So
just knowing all the basics, this goes here, say this, not that.
Yeah, he was an enabler. He was an enabler for demystifying how complicated it actually is. It's very simple.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like quite the conversationalist, and once you like talking to people, there isn't a lot left to it, I think. So
absolutely.
So how much time, you said it took you like 4 or 5 days within your process of thought, like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then a few days after you did it. So would you say that was the amount of time it took you to launch your platform, or would it be longer than that?
I think it took me about a week. I just was possessed by passion. I at the beginning borrowed a friend's microphone. I just got the services, the software running, It was all very basic. When you start a venture, you don't understand anything. You have to just run in and do it, like all the entrepreneurs gurus will say. So yeah, I had no idea what I was doing, just ended up doing it, and got off to the races of doing the podcast. And ever since then, I've released 3 podcast episodes a week, haven't taken a single vacation, haven't looked back once.
Well, as long as you love what you do, then that's the vacation in it, I guess. And just
Exactly.
like you said, you just got to do it, and things just kind of happen automatically. You don't even notice. So was any funding needed to build your platform? And what would you recommend to those who don't have any money at all to build what they want to build?
Sure. So I didn't take on funding to start the podcast. It's pretty low cost to run a podcast. You need to acquire a microphone. You need to probably maybe acquire headphones. You need a laptop, obviously, and you need a few subscriptions. What would I advise a student who doesn't have any money to do a podcast? I would advise them to, if you have internet access, learn how to work with podcasts. And maybe you can go and intern for someone who already has one. And then maybe make some money to start your own after having done that, because then you have the experience of working for somebody else's show and helping them out on that. And you can make money to do your own podcast stream.
Yeah, it seems like 2 birds, 1 stone. So your podcast, they're on your website, right? It's not like, is it also like on YouTube and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we recently started posting to YouTube because we've been driving a lot of views on TikTok. And my objective is to start capturing YouTube subscribers from TikTok. So that's only been like the past 3-week thing. Mostly all of our podcasts have been on Spotify, Apple, our website, distributed across all the podcast players. And the thing about those platforms is there isn't a lot of organic discovery. So we think YouTube's a cool play. Took me a long time to start posting there just because it's a whole nother element, but recently kind of revolutionized my workflow. And yeah, we have our past 10 podcasts or so on YouTube right now.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of different. I'd say that Apple and Spotify are like the real podcast listeners are going to find what they want to listen to there. And how would you say you got those first users that did start listening?
Yeah, so I think your first listeners will always be like your friends and family. And I've always been someone who uses LinkedIn a lot. So that was kind of where I launched the podcast. And LinkedIn has pretty good conversion rates for content if it's well marketed. It's like a professional network, right? So people are always looking for inspiration and cool content. And it's the only platform where people think they're being productive when they're just scrolling. So it's definitely a good place to market a podcast for sure, and to like build a brand. I built like a big personal brand for myself on LinkedIn, kind of sharing my story, and then I just be like whipping out these huge guests. And I created an Instagram, I created like a Twitter. I started sharing it out in all these group chats. I shared it out with like my school's group chat for like the first 24 episodes, which is kind of cringy. I would just put it everywhere. I would put my podcast every single channel I had. It's kind of cringy when I look back on it, because I was clearly hitting people like 3 times. And, if they weren't interested, then I was spamming them, I guess. But,
You just
when
believe in it. You're like, you have to see this. You have to see it.
Yes. Yeah. You have to own it. You have to own it. You have to have supreme confidence in what you're doing. And to get your start, it makes, it's not too far fetched to be doing that. I was really in a crazy place. I was just like, so possessed by this, and just really wanted to stand out during COVID. And I just couldn't stop envisioning myself, doing crazy things. And that was my mentality at the time. I think I cared a lot back then about what other people thought of me. I think I got some sense of, sense of worth and sense of credibility, I guess, by being like, oh wow, like my peers, like what are they doing right now? And then here I am, like whipping out these like huge guests that I've secured through like cold emails and just being scrappy. And I think just that idea of being this kid who's like actually going out and interviewing CEOs, being that kid like comes around, once, not too often. Who does that? It made me, kind of filled me with some sense of motivation. But I was quick to learn that shouldn't be the driving factor of what you're doing. You should do it because you love it, not because it makes you look good or increases your social credibility.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it makes you look good regardless, but that's just a bonus. I'm totally going to quote you on that LinkedIn thing. Next time I'm going to be on LinkedIn, I'm going to think I'm not being productive at all. Um, so, so you found yourself talking to like really, really impressive people, like the co-founder of Netflix and the CEO of Chipotle, and like names that people have heard of, like it's a big deal. So I'm sure that you've learned a lot. And what would you say is an advantage that Gen Z has, and how can they use that advantage to build their own startup?
Yeah. So what Gen Z has is a view of the world that I think Up Next is obviously, very bullish on, um, which is just understanding things that older people don't understand. I think Gen Z startups have an advantage because, like, no matter what, like all these legacy companies have, at the end of the day, old people who are making those final decisions about products and about strategies, and that's why Gen Z startups can be so disruptive. You can see trends that are evolving around your generation, whether it be wellness, whether it be content focused like short form, whether it be, in the food space, whether it be in the anonymous social network space or mental health. As a Gen Z, you're privy to the wants, needs, desires of your peers. And like myself, you can aim to build a product that focuses on those wants, needs, and desires because they're only an arm's length away from you all the time. And I think as a Gen Z, user testing is pretty easy. You're in a college campus, you're in a high school, you have a lot of friends around you who you can test the product with. You can ask them questions. And I think this is a very supportive generation who's willing to, um, you know, uh, give you some feedback and help you iterate on your idea. So that's sort of the advantage I think Gen Z has. I think in previous generations, it was less like that. Maybe it was more competitive, but I think we're entering a new world where collaboration is paramount, and competition is still there, but it's less central to everybody's individual journeys.
Yeah, I mean, to compete sometimes seems kind of, when you think about it in the long run, kind of ridiculous. If we could work together and both succeed, what's wrong with that? And
Yeah.
having such a great audience helping you, just like you said, in college or high school or wherever, you have a huge platform no matter where you are, because you still have, your phone.
Right. I would also say that the ability of Gen Z, if you're a student, the ability you have to reach out to mentors and big people. In my case, I've been interviewing them, but that doesn't mean that you have to do that. You can talk to them for feedback on your product. Interviewing them is the best way to be able to get in touch with them, but just trying to get coffee with them and trying to get feedback and reaching out, people are always down to help students. So you have a huge advantage in the world from being young and ambitious, because a lot of these successful people who've done it before see themselves in you. So it's a massive advantage if you're a young Gen Z right now to be doing that.
Very true. Throughout your journey, what is one mistake that you would avoid?
One mistake I would avoid, I think I'd go back to what I said earlier. You don't become an entrepreneur to be an entrepreneur. Like, you don't become an entrepreneur so your friends are like, oh, put you up on a pedestal. You don't become an entrepreneur because you want to stand out in your school. You don't become an entrepreneur because you want to make a bunch of money. You become an entrepreneur because you find something you love so much and you're so possessed by passion, you're so tremendously enamored by what you're doing that you create a business out of it. And that's my opinion, that if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to find something that you can't stop thinking about. And that might take a bit of time to find that thing. And I know a lot of people want to start businesses, like, oh, let's start a business. But you're not going to be successful unless you're driven from the core to do this thing and do it better than anyone else in the world. So it's really got to be something that you're passionate about, as opposed to something you're doing just for, to build, yourself up, or, get some other, external benefits or money. That was the mistake I made at the beginning. And that I saw too much of myself and others, as opposed to, my own passion.
Well, it sounds like you are very true to yourself now, and that you know what the direction is that you're taking, which is, I'm sure, something that this whole business that you found, is what helped you realize that. So that's something really, I don't know, like, let's say touching, like something that's not very businessy, it's more like within. And that really happens to a lot of people, which I think is great that they discover themselves like that. So what are 3 traits that you would look for in a business partner, co-founder type of person?
3 traits I would look for in a co-founder. So definitely extremely organized and process oriented. I think it's really good to have a co-founder that kind of complements your strengths. In my case, I don't have a co-founder and never have, but I do have team members that complement those strengths. So definitely organization and process oriented. I think being vocal about what is going wrong, like what could be better. If you are a co-founder who joins late, or you're a team member who joins and you have this person who's driving the business forward, and who's the life of the business, it's hard to be able to tell them that you don't like something they're doing and give them feedback. So just being very transparent and open about that. And I guess the third trait would be, this person shares in the passion for what the business was founded on. This person is extremely passionate about the business idea and the goals of the business and the mission of the business, and is in it for the same reasons the founder is and the rest of the team is, to solve a problem.
Exactly, solve a problem. That's pretty much what each entrepreneur is doing at the end of the day, whether it's big or small. We are solving problems. So you said before that you always find it, easy to learn from people because you're so young. People always want to pass on their knowledge to younger entrepreneurs. So what would you say is one advantage and one disadvantage of being so young in this industry?
Yeah, the advantage of being young is you can get in contact, like you have nothing to lose. That's the advantage, right? I can just email the CEO of this company like 5 times, and like if he doesn't respond, he doesn't respond, right?
Yep.
That is the advantage of being a young person. Like, you just don't have much to lose. In terms of what advantages someone who's older has, it's a question I don't think I've ever answered before, because I always sing the praises of being a young entrepreneur.
Well, we have
being
advantages, and what would be a disadvantage for someone young? Wouldn't have to be an advantage
disadvantage.
for someone old, but
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Disadvantage of being young, I would say. Disadvantage of being young, probably that you just don't have the you don't have a tremendous amount of life experience yet. So that might mean you don't know what you want to do. And granted, like it's not like don't know what you want to do with your career, your life, but it's like sometimes it takes time to be exposed to the thing that you're going to run with. And I was lucky enough to have kind of been exposed to it and have gone with it early, at age 20. But there's a lot of people who won't find their spark for business until age 25 or age 30 or age 35. They won't find the idea in entrepreneurship that's going to make them drop out of school or quit their job. So I'd say they just haven't spent that much time on the planet to be exposed to all the different exciting things and the exciting problems that could be solved. They might not even have found that yet. So you might be scratching your head, oh, I really want to start a business, but I don't know what to do. Perhaps time is the answer to that. And being intellectually curious and going out and learning voraciously is the answer.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sure that at some point it'll pop into your head, and if not sooner than later. So working on your podcasts, I'm sure that you have some kind of tech tool that wasn't mentioned yet on our channel. So what is a tech tool that you can't go without? An app or a website of any kind?
Yeah, Adobe Premiere is a wonderful, wonderful application. And I certainly couldn't go without it.
Just day to day, always using it.
Adobe Premiere is a video editing software. So definitely a great tech tool. My AirPod Maxes are a tech tool. They really cancel out the noise now that I'm back at school in this apartment.
Noisy.
Obviously my computer, that is like everything I've ever achieved.
That is the go-to. Yep.
Yeah, everything I've ever achieved is on that computer.
Yeah. So interviewing all of these people, I'm thinking to myself, like, the next question, you might have thought of people that you've interviewed, or it could go to another direction of people that I really want to interview. So which entrepreneurs inspire you the most these days?
Which entrepreneurs inspire me the most? I think entrepreneurs who are doing things that are really hard inspire me the most. I think that what I do takes a ton of hard work and a ton of focus and a ton of grind, just blood, sweat, and tears. But there are other entrepreneurs who are doing things like creating autonomous vehicles, who are creating robots, who are creating deep tech solutions. And that stuff is like blows your mind, right? What I do is so simple and seemingly so inconsequential to those things that might change society as we know it. I'm a platform for ideas and entertainment. And perhaps I'd share those ideas on there, but those businesses are set to transform and make easy human life. So any entrepreneur creating hardware, I think I admire a lot. I think any entrepreneur creating vehicles, I admire a lot. Any entrepreneur dealing with tremendous regulation, I admire a lot, because there are businesses with much higher barriers to entry.
You have any names for us?
Any names of businesses?
No, not businesses. An actual person that you're like, I like him.
Mm-hmm. Who would I point to? I think my friend Rahul wrote a book about making moonshots, which he's a Gen Z as well, just discussing like deep tech companies and their role in society. So I have a lot of respect for him, and that he's, again, celebrating those people, not exactly doing it. I haven't interviewed a lot of like super technical entrepreneurs like lately, though I have interviewed, for example, Shawnee Mir, who I actually interviewed him at the start of my show. He's creating robots which are delivering medicine within hospitals to other hospital wards, because nurses spend a ton of time wasted just delivering things between hospital wards, right? So that's solving like a real like human problem, right? A real demonstrable human problem. The people over at Roe are doing something cool. Adam Greenberg, he's the general counsel there. I've interviewed him, doing something really, really interesting. in direct to consumer healthcare and like kind of like circumventing insurance in that regard. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, so really I'd have to go back. But if you just look at my interviews, all of those people inspire me, and it's hard to select just a name or two out of them, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like picking your favorite child. So which trait do you feel of yours is your weakest and you need to outsource it somehow with a person or a website that can do it for you?
Yeah, I'd say my weakest trait is probably organization. So I'd also say like time management as well can be difficult. So whether that's outsourcing that to my team or having kind of consulting help for that from other people, I think is really important. I spend all my time on content, so I do a lot of doing, not a lot of thinking. So I think that high level strategy is important to outsource from other people on my team, as well as organization around content, scheduling, and vision for what comes next.
Yeah, well, we need those people that do and those people that plan what they'll do. So
Right.
you need to be on one of those sides. So let's say I am an average teenager looking to build my startup and I have $100. What or where or how would you recommend me to invest in this money, if at all?
Sure. Um, You have $100. You have $100. I think COVID is interesting because you can't really like sell things to a stadium full of people. I think that would be a pretty good idea to get in front of all of those people. I wonder how many. Okay, here's what you should do. Buy as many wristbands as you can on Alibaba, and then get as many wristbands, like plastic wristbands, right? Or you know what? You could do t-shirts, right? And as many of those t-shirts as you can, and then draw some logo on it. I don't know, maybe like a V or like a V plus. Stand outside a vaccination clinic and sell it to people who've been vaccinated, so they have an article of clothing or a wristband to signify that they've been vaccinated. I feel like if you can like target like a group of people who all like have done the same thing, you can create a product that like goes with that. So that's just one idea I have if you want to go do that.
Well,
So there's no costs other than creating the product and going to your closest vaccination site.
that's I think the most original answer I've gotten to that question until now. I had someone say, you take your $100, put let's say half of it in ads, and the other half buy people coffee.
Like buy other people coffee.
Yeah, and talk to them and do your own networking. Invite them for a cup of coffee, which I also thought was pretty cool. So I think it's going to be one of those answers that I remember, which is always good.
Sure.
So how important do you think it is for young entrepreneurs to think about social change when they're creating a business?
I think it's really, really important to think about what impact you're having, because like no one's going to work for you unless there's a why. Like no one's going to join your mission unless there's a why, and like you're demonstrating that before they knock on your door. Like nobody cares. Like GenZ doesn't really care about how much money you're going to make, and they don't really care about just doing something to do something. Like they want a why, they want a mission, and that is inextricably linked with society and doing good in the world. So lead with your why. Make your mission clear to whatever it is. In our case, it's to inspire the next generation and create the best content for them to go out and achieve their dreams. So I think lead with your why and make it very clear, very always present around the conversations that you're having with team members, or when you're recruiting, or when you're asking someone what they think of your idea. That's a huge reason why people are going to want to join you, and why people are going to want to pay you, and why people are going to respect you and be inspired by what you are doing.
It's very true. We always need any kind of change, big or small, but something, it has to start from somewhere. And I always feel that at some point it'll get bigger. Like if you planned on it or not, if it's going in the right direction, the change will also become more and more significant, once it moves forward. So we have our last question. You can feel free to turn off your brain there for a minute, because it's not a hard one, I think. So if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be? Don't think too hard.
Yeah. How about getting I would like to be able to make a relationship or a friendship with someone with the snap of a finger, no matter if it's Oprah, the Queen, or
I want to know them.
Yeah, like I want to know them and I want to be able to interview them.
That's really original. I don't think I've heard of that superpower yet. Super.
Imagine that though. You could just make an ally with anybody.
Yeah. Wow, you could make world peace in like a minute.
You could do that.
That could be one of your V's to check off.
Absolutely.
So, Michael, it's been really great getting to know you and listening, how your mind works and how you got into the place where you are now. I'm really happy to see that you are enjoying what you do and, passing it on to everyone listening. And I can't wait to see who you interview next.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd also love to learn a bit more about Up Next if you have the time.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to learn a bit more about you and then how you got involved and what the organization is.